Da 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 da. Hello, hello everyone. Looks like we are live. We're connecting. Why is the screen black? Okay, we're good. Okay, we're good. Hello everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad you all could make it today. I really appreciate it. So, let me go ahead and I tested everything since the last time that we streamed. Streamlabs should be working. Shouldn't have any problems with OBS. Like everything should be working. I don't know if maybe there was like a lag in things updating or something, because that happens with all the different apps I use. So everything should work, but I'll keep an eye on it because you never know. But let's go ahead and get the chat connected, which worked when I used it with Twitch earlier this week. So it should also just work today. Oh, it still doesn't. It's saying unlisted. What is going on with that? Maybe I just need... I'm gonna remove my channel and reconnect it. Because I can't actually see it until I go live, so it's a little hard to test it ahead of time. It worked with Twitch though, so I'm thinking it's probably... I probably just need to... Yeah, connect to my account, blah, 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 steal all my data, put 3 billion cookies on my browser, sell all my data to some foreign country. Sure, why not? Go for it. Okay, let's see if this actually works. No! Oh, that is very strange. It's still not seeing any of my stuff for my channel. I don't know what to make of that, to be honest. Okay, that's really weird. I don't know why it's doing that. So I'll just have to look at the chat the old-fashioned way, as we did back in the old country. Everything is fine with me on YouTube and my Android cell phone. Oh, yeah. You all should be fine. The problem is like here, I have a chat thing that's normally supposed to go by, and I can't really test it until we go live. And for some reason, the service that I use is not connecting with the streams I actually have available on my YouTube. Like, it's showing ones from like months ago, but it's not showing the current ones. And I have no idea why that would be the case. Like, it's showing like, what is this one from? Like from like 2 months ago, I think. Very strange. I don't know what's going on there. That'll have to be something I message them about at this point. So gotta do that. Yes. Oh, my fan on. It is a hot one today. We're on one last little burst of summer here in the greater Portland region, and doggo camera not super great with the heat, so we're gonna just keep our fingers crossed and hopefully it doesn't glitch out. But sometimes when it gets really hot, because there's not good cooling for that little camera, it just will like it looks like it's in the Matrix. Somebody's fire alarm is going off. I think it's my downstairs neighbor. Well, can't worry about that. I've set off the smoke detector in my unit every single... Alright, that's weird. I hear someone banging around. Oh, the fire alarm turned off. Oh, he was probably banging the ceiling, trying to turn off the fire alarm in the ceiling. That's probably what happened. Okay, I think we're good. I think I am not about to have my apartment burned down. So I'm gonna keep going. That was very strange. but is what it is. Have a thought for us here in Portland. It got hot here out of the blue from 72 to 97 in a couple days. Woohoo. Yeah, it was a big change. I mean, honestly, I was a little sad that it got cold. Like, it got cold. I was like, oh, I'm not ready. It's not even the end of August yet. Like, I want to enjoy the last little bit of summer, because I feel like here, basically, as soon as it gets to like the first week of September, it's like fall. It is fall weather, and I just wanted to have a little bit of a moment to like savor it, you know, and just really enjoy it. So I'm glad that we have some more time. No, you're still a mod. You still got the little wrench sign by your username. It looks like we got all the usual people are mods that should be mods. Anyways, technical difficulties aside, fire alarms aside, welcome to the live stream, everyone. My name's Evie Lupine. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. If you've been here before but it's been a while, also hello. We love everyone who hangs out with us here on these Friday evenings for a little kinky Q&A. This is 18 plus only, so if you are not at least 18, please do not be here. That is for your safety, my safety, everyone's safety. Just mixing adults and minors and kink advice and talking about sex. Bad idea, especially in today's current political climate. It's also because I'm not a professional and like I'm not like a licensed authority. And like it's not appropriate for me to communicate with minors and like give people who are underage kink advice. And like it's worth it to wait. I know that not everyone's going to. I know that very many of us who are adults in the BDSM scene got started out either not realizing we were doing kink at a young age, or we were doing it intentionally and just, you know, we were teenagers and that's, you know, what teenagers do. But doesn't mean it's a good idea to mix minors and adults together in one shared kink space. So just like keep that in mind. Please be respectful. We always have like a couple times a year we get somebody who comes through here who's like, hey, I'm finally 18, now I can join. And like I love that. I think learning how to respect consent and boundaries, even when it's hard, is one of the very best skills you can learn as a person in life, but definitely in kink as well. So think of it as a skill building opportunity. Also read the rules and the FAQ down below. It is linked down below. I have lots of resources for commonly asked questions because I've been doing these for many years at this point now. And because of that, I have actually a pretty good set of resources for commonly asked things like where to buy a flogger, what is FetLife, how do I talk to my boyfriend about trying kink. We've got lots of resources for that. So check that out down below. I basically go through the chat in order. I try to keep an eye both on the current chat if we're having a conversation about something, and then I go through the chat in order to look for questions. So it's always best to ask your question early, and then don't spam the chat. If I don't get to it in like 5 minutes, I'm not going to see it sooner if you ask it again. I will try to give people like 10 or 15 minutes at the very end to re-ask a question if I didn't get to it. I'm obviously not going to be able to promise I can get to everything, but I will try. You can also go ahead and use a super chat, or you can use YouTube. There's basically Streamlabs, which is one form of super chat, and then a YouTube super chat. They work the same way. It shows up on screen. It'll read out your message. It's very cute. It's a good way to get your question highlighted, and then I'll answer your question right away. Otherwise, I'm going to go in order, and it might be a while. You might have to wait. Okay? This is an in-demand restaurant. So you're going to have to wait to get your question served to you. We have our co-star here. This is her legal name is Bandit. But we call her Bandita because if I say her legal name, it's like activating. It's like red alert mode. We're doing something is happening. So when she's sleepy, as she usually is at this time of day, say Bandita because she doesn't like have her sleeper activation code said. Yeah, you're just sleepy. You're just sleepy, eepy, as we should be. As is her right. So that's basically what y'all need to know about that. I will go ahead. I watched your videos before I was 18, but only joined streams and started commenting after I turned 18. That's how you do it, Fluff Noodles. I know I can't, do I, want to have an audience of minors? No. Especially if you're, 14. Probably There's some other groundwork you could be working on first, to be honest. But you know, if like somebody's like 17 or whatever, like I'm not losing sleep at night about the 1% of my audience who's like 17 is like watching a video, because like I'm not explicit in my content. I don't talk about like, you know, I'm not like, ooh, sexy ASMR story time. Like, you know, I'm not doing that. So I feel okay with that. It's more the participation thing and the back and forth that is a problem. So thank you for being respectful. Also, there's tons of good resources you can listen to. Like there's podcasts, there's books, ebooks, so many things that you don't even have to like, you know, obviously don't take any of them as gospel and doesn't mean to start practice doing them. But if you want to build a base of knowledge, there's ways to do that. Don't involve like talking directly to an adult about this stuff, you know. That's basically what you need to know. Okay, so that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the chat here on my phone so I can have a way to look at the real-time chat. And then, ooh, I can actually have the chat on my phone full screen. What kind of freaks are on YouTube not looking at the live stream and only watching the chat? Who is doing that other than the creator for their own stream? That is, I need to know. It's like, oh, I hate the streamer, but I'm here for the chat. That would be very funny. Me too. I was glad I waited for the community aspect. We love it. Thank you all so much for being respectful. I appreciate it. Oh yeah, What's the Safe Word has a great podcast. They are so funny. I love them. I'm not practicing BDSM so much, like almost nothing, so sometimes the topic makes me sad. I will try and see how I feel today about it. Hey, that's totally valid. Actually, I saw a post today on FetLife that was either, I don't think it was a status, it might have been a writing that somebody posted. Maybe it was a status. Okay, I don't know which it was. It doesn't really matter. But somebody posted something on FetLife that was essentially saying, like, there is not a minimum threshold for how much you need to actively be doing kink in order to call yourself kinky. Like, there's no, like, if it's a scene every day or power exchange or going to a dungeon once a month, there's no minimum level, and it's about finding what is authentic and correct for you. And for some people, like, they're always going to be going to parties every single weekend, and they're constantly going to events, and they have power exchange every day, and they live with their partner, and so for them, like, BDSM is, like, really highly involved. But for most people, there's going to be an ebb and flow. You get into the community, you get really involved in it, you're constantly going to events, you're trying to find your people, maybe you have a partner, and you're doing kink all the time because there's so much to explore still, and then you get a little older, and you get more responsibilities at your job, or you end up having to commute farther away, or you have a kid, or maybe you have to take care of another family member or something, right? And you end up having other vanilla life obligations come in and make it so you can't participate as much as you once did. Or maybe you, like, have a bad breakup, or you get, like, an actual physical injury, or get in a car crash. Like, I know people, like, car crashes especially, I feel like no one talks about this. I know many people in the scene that have gotten, like, soft tissue injuries or brain injuries from car crashes, who go from being really active in the scene to, like, not for quite a long time, because, like, when you're dealing with, like, really terrible back pain or hip problems or shoulder problems, if you used to really like doing bondage or, like, rough body play, it's really hard to get back into doing that when, like, 2 weeks ago you got whiplash from a car accident. Like, that's, you know, there are some things you can still do, but also, like, psychologically you might not be ready for it. And it's probably, I imagine, I don't know what, like, a physical therapist would say about that, but, you know, you need to focus on doing some actual recovery for that. So there's lots of reasons why our participation in kink might ebb and flow, and I think it's very worthwhile to be kind to ourselves and not hold ourselves to, like, the Instagram, FetLife, you know, wherever social standard of, like, this is the level of participation that, you know, proper kinky people do. Because, like, I know people, for example, in the rope scene that, like, they post photos, like, every weekend of, like, doing suspensions. And, like, that's not where my life is anymore. And I have to be like, oh, like, I wish I could be doing that. But, like, now it's, like, much less common for me than it used to be. And, like, I could be doing it more, but then I'd also be doing rope with people that I don't trust or actually don't want to be playing with anymore. So we also have to think about that too. Like, we could be participating a lot more, but it might not be in a healthy way, and it could actually be a bigger detriment to us. For like what reason? Just to do it more for the sake of it because we think we have to. I don't think that that's healthy at all. So don't beat yourself up for whatever level of participation you have. And just to be clear, I think it's also valid if you are a person who's like every weekend going to a munch, going to a party, organizing stuff. Like, you know, you have a group chat with you and all of your like kinky polycule, whatever stuff that you do, that's also fine. It's just the whole spectrum is fine. Okay. And I think we talk about this more in, like, for example, like polyamory, right? Where like you don't even, and I would say even this is true to a certain extent with kink, I don't think you have to necessarily be currently like in multiple relationships to call yourself polyamorous. I don't think you have to necessarily like be actively doing kink right now to be kinky, because I think being kinky is about the desires that you have and what you want to do, even if you're not currently able to do it, because like it's weird. Like, to me, the idea of it's weird. Like, okay, somebody gets in an accident and then they're like in the hospital for 2 weeks and then they have to recover for 6 months because they have a bunch of surgeries. Like, do they no longer get to say they're kinky because like they have to be on like bed rest for 6 months? Like, no, like that. Why would we even want to do that? Like, what is the motivation for that? So I think everything is valid. And I think if we spend too much time feeling bad about ourselves for not doing kink as much as we should, that guilt can actually cause us to make bad decisions about who we play with, the kinds of scenes that we're doing, just to get to the point of being able to do it. And I think we have. Anyways, I kind of randomly, that wasn't even really a question, but like, I feel like it's funny that topic came up again because it's something that I've been thinking about a lot. Because like, I don't like, you know, I don't really talk about this on my channel, but like I have long COVID. I'm very COVID conscious because like I am self-employed, and if I get sick again and I lose my voice for a month again and I can't do my job because I literally can't physically speak, that's a really big deal. So like, I'm very cautious about what events I go to, how often I go to events. Like, I have a very different risk analysis than a lot of other people do. And so that means I'm not as active in the public scene as I used to be, because I'm like trying not to get sick, because I like can't afford to get sick because I don't have a job that like gives me like paid sick leave. And also because of the nature of my job, like, you know, if I worked in an office and I could just like answer emails and like, you know, talk quietly, you know, to my coworkers or like write them a note, like I could get away with not having a voice. But when my job is like recording videos and live streaming, can't really do that if I don't have a voice. There's not really a workaround for that in the way that maybe you could if you worked in an office. But that's just like one example that's maybe maybe people don't know about that, and maybe knowing that I also have had changes in my life over how much I participate in kink and what that looks like, maybe that helps other people feel better. But anyways, that is that on that. Never having been to a dungeon is a struggle, and voyeurism is a hard limit for me. Oh, fair. I don't want to be around it, so it's really hard to be in the community physically. Oh, that's, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's not really, unless you're renting a dungeon to just use with a play partner, there's not really a way around like going to a dungeon for a play party and like not having people watch you at some level. So
Mr.
yeah, that's
Beansman donated
very fair.
$5. Hi,
we have
Miss wants me to get a brush in my bag for
chat.
putting my hair up before a scene to put me in my headspace. I want to get a nice brush that she can brush my hair and hit me with. Any recommendations?
Miss wants me to get a brush from my bag for putting my hair up before a scene to put me in my headspace. I want to get a nice brush that she can brush my hair and hit me with. Any recommendations? These are very popular with Spankos, but if you can find a vintage wooden hairbrush, especially like an ebony wood or like some kind of like harder black wood, I think also there's some other, I don't know what other woods are popular. I remember seeing a lot of like ebony wooden hairbrushes. Those can be quite expensive, but they're like basically just like paddles, but they have bristles on one side. Obviously, not all of them are going to be functional, depending on like vintage can mean anywhere from like 1850 to like 1950. So like how like or even like 1970, honestly. So it depends on how old it is, if it's still like usable as a brush. I actually never thought I would pull this out. there's like stuff in it, so don't judge me, all right? I got this. What is on here? Why is there? It got hair product on, I think. This is it's kind of faded, but this is a Mason Pearson brush. It's like it's a mini sensitive one. And I actually use this on my actual hair. You can find these secondhand on like eBay, Mercari, Poshmark. What are the other? OfferUp, maybe. I think probably less than one OfferUp. These are really nice. They are not like, they are, I think, plastic. So I don't know how, like, depends on how hard your partner wants to hit you with them. But the bristles on them are really nice, and they come in a couple of different sensitivity levels. Like, this is the sensitive one. They have ones that are meant for other types of hair, and they also come in different sizes. They are spendy, but they are like actually really nice hairbrushes, and I like it because it has this is like a very like vintage look. Like the silhouette and like the style of bristles is very vintage. I bought the secondhand because I'm vegan and these are made out of boar bristle, so I didn't want to buy any one. But you can also go to like Sally's and you can look at their boar bristle hairbrushes. Or if you don't have a Sally's near you, some other kind of like beauty supply shop, look for a boar bristle hairbrush. Something that's like round or square. Something. I like these as well because this is like aftercare kit size. Like it's, for me, I mean, I have like kind of like long fingers, but like it's about like hand size for me. So it doesn't take up a lot of room. Also it's black, which obviously I like because, because reasons. And what else would I say? General boar bristle. There's another brand you can get at like Sephora and Ulta. What is that called? Because I have one from them too that I really liked. That's not quite as like classic corporal punishment-y, but it has like fun colors. Is it a wet brush product? It might be. Maybe. I got one that was like a rainbowy one. No, this doesn't look right. Although they do have there's like a Minnie Mouse one. There's like Disney ones. If you're into like DDLG type stuff. There's also apparently Harry Potter stuff. Although, maybe don't. Maybe don't. All right, now I'm looking at, listen, one thing that's for sure is when you ask me a question, you are going to get a very thorough answer. And I am going to browse on Ulta to make sure I give you the full deets of what I would recommend for a spanking / aftercare brush. That is, oh no, this is the wrong, no, not makeup brushes. I want hair brushes, Ulta. Oh my gosh. Too many options, Ulta, too many options. But I actually really like brushing people's hair, and I had I just feel like I've known a lot of people that really like having their hair brushed. So this is actually something I've done a not insignificant amount of research into for finding like what are the best brushes that other people like for having their hair brushed and combed with. Okay, where is treatment, styling products? There we go, brushes and combs. Good God, that took a long time to find. Maybe it was a Tangle teaser. I feel like it was rainbow. I'm not seeing it now though. Yeah, but you can find like a boar bristle brush for like under $30 if you don't want something that's like really fancy. Oh wait, is this it? Did I actually find it? I think I did. Is this it? Maybe. I think this is the one I have. It was some rainbow one. It may have also been a wet brush one. They have like a holographic one. Wet brushes are great in general. They have kind of like little plastic pins on the end. So they have a little bit of a different texture to them than like the classic boar bristle ones do. But I think actually the one I have is the Olivia Garden Opal Detangler brush, because it was whatever I had was like rainbowy, and these look rainbowy. Oh yeah, okay, this is it. I totally found it. It's the Aurora Styler Smooth and Shine brush. I'm like 90% sure that's the one that I bought. Because it has a mix of, it's a mix of nylon and regular, maybe this isn't actually the same one. There's something about it that's like, it's the right color, but like the brand is different. And mine actually didn't have a mix of boar, and it was all plastic bristles. So maybe this is, okay, I'm pretty sure this is the right brand. So I'm just going to leave it at that because I'm not going to keep diving into this. But it's Olivia Garden. They have a bunch of like rainbowy, cool colored brushes. I think that they're pretty high quality. They're very ergonomic. They're bigger than this, but it's a similar shape. And have fun. That's my recommendation. There you go. Very thorough brush recommendation. Yes, I already mentioned beauty supply shops, but hairstylist supply shops also. Ooh, I have a pear bristle brush. It's a vegan version of boar bristle. I have not seen that before. That is very interesting. I honestly don't even like use this one too much. I basically use it at night when my hair's already dry. I have like an actual like wet comb I use for like my hair most of the time, but I bought this secondhand. And again, the one that I bought, that's the Olivia Garden one, it's like, it was all plastic bristles. So I don't think it's quite the one. It's not the Aurora styler. It must be a different one. Because like different hair types, like basically the different types of bristles work better for different hair types, essentially. That's the theory, at least. Or if you want to use them wet or dry. Or both. If you want to be real crazy with it. But yeah. That's what you need to know. Actually, the being vegan's funny because suddenly you're aware of all this animal like this. Like I feel like when you just look at this, you don't think about it. Like it feels like plastic, but it is actually boar, and it's like so weird. It's like, oh, this is actually like an animal product. Like I feel like that's, if you don't think about it, it's kind of strange. I think it might be pear cactus. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Because okay, well, is it like the spikes that come out of the cactus? Or is it like cactus leather that they've... I have so many... I'm going to have to look that up later. That sounds very interesting. I found that a milk foamer, that electric little whisk, can be fun. It stings a little, but not too much, and leaves a little red mark. It also stops easily, too, when it meets much resistance, but that's on a brush, of course. Yeah, probably don't put a milk foamer in your hair. That seems like a bad idea. That seems like the start of an infomercial where like they show the black and white part where they're like, are you really tired of getting your milk foamer caught in your hair? And then they're like, not anymore with the anti-hair milk foaming attachment. Like that's what I'm picturing. Somebody is still making fuller brushes. Listen, some things never got a style. I have an incredibly chunky My Melody hairbrush. I partially bought for spanking, but it's not even good in the thud department. I was so sad. Yeah, I find hairbrushes, they tend to be quite stingy, like kind of regardless of if they're like an actual hairbrush or like a hairbrush shaped paddle. Like I haven't, outside of using one that has like a really heavy wood, and even then it's like the surface sting with wood is unavoidable. It's just going to be there. In my opinion, I'm very sting sensitive. If there's any sting in an impact play object at all, I will find it. I will feel it. I will know that it's there. There's no hiding from me. Yeah. Anyways, now that I think we are all educated about hairbrushes and milk foamers. Harry Potter themed kink party, yeah, it checks out for a whole lot of us millennials. Honestly, the fact that I haven't seen anyone do that before, I feel like is telling. I feel like I don't know. I have met several Disney adults in the kink scene, like 3 or 4, like to the level of Disney adult that they have like tattoos related to Disney World, or like you know, some, like a Mickey Mouse, like the balloon outline or something like that. It's a surprising number, but I haven't met any Harry Potter adults, which I think is not actually a term that people use, but I haven't met any Harry Potter adults that are kinky. Maybe they just don't talk about it because they're like, you know, don't look at my car. I still technically have the Deathly Hollow sticker, but it's, you know, because I haven't gotten around to, you know, chipping it off yet. Don't look. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe there's just embarrassment. People don't tend to admit to it as readily as the Disney thing, maybe. Mm-hmm. Oh, listen, there's nothing like, I'm only a little bit of a Disney adult hater. But like, just because I feel like organizing your life around any corporation is like something I don't fully understand, but like, it's not like, I don't care. Like, do what you want with your life, you know? No skin off my nose, as they say. Stretchy. This is, by the way, that's just me in my everyday life. That's just what I do. I see her do something, and I'm like, oh, something's happening. It's delightful. Every day is a beautiful journey. Look at all the Disney adults. I wonder how many kinky Disney adults are also kitties. A lot of them are also littles. I don't know about kitten players specifically, but it's not zero. I will tell you that much. After Disney bought Marvel and Star Wars, oh yeah, those mergers happened. Wow, that's not an antitrust situation at all. No one should look into that whatsoever. I feel like that might make me a Disney adult after the fact. Yeah, you got grandfathered into being a Disney adult if you're a Marvel or a Star Wars fan. The next time a nerd guy is sexist to me, which happens at least biannually, I'll just tell him that he's a Disney adult. Oh my god. I'll be like, stop acting like such a Disney adult. And he'll be like, what? And I'll be like, yeah, your favorite property is owned by Disney. Oh, it's gonna be such a good comeback line. I love having stuff in the back pocket like that. I definitely meant to say littles, but I autocorrected. Oh yeah, fair enough. I personally welcome people to get into Terry Pratchett. Great fantasy books, and he was a good person overall. Yes, Terry Pratchett is fantastic. I don't know how I didn't know who Terry Pratchett was as a kid. Like, I don't know how. Like, I was a huge reader as a kid. Like, I read so many books, and growing up, I never, like, I don't even think I saw Terry Pratchett books in a library, because I think I mean, maybe they wouldn't have appealed to me just, like, reading the cover, but then I found them as an adult because I had a roommate that was really into Terry Pratchett, and she had, like, all of his books, and she gave me a couple to read, and he's really good. So, you know what? Find a new obsession. No one will take vintage Disney away from me. I mean, listen, I'm not trying to take anything away from anyone. Go forth and enjoy your vintage Disney. I really like vintage Winnie the Pooh. I think is adorable. And Bambi. I love Bambi. I love, like, the art of Bambi. Like, I don't know what it is about Bambi. It may be that it's very nature focused, but there's some, like, shots in Bambi that are so, like, just beautiful. And, like, it makes me, every single time I think about it, like, makes me sad that they only are doing, like, 3D animation. And, like, I don't think 3D animation is, like, a lesser form of art or anything. I think, obviously, it's very complicated. It's very hard to do. It requires a high level of skill. But, you know, it's like, imagine if we just stopped, like, if no one, like, painted anymore and everyone was a digital artist. Like, it'd be a little sad. It would be a little sad. I think it's fair to think it's sad. Don't worry, there were plenty of court cases, especially with Marvel and theme park rights, since Universal already had them on the East Coast. Oh! Two monopolies going head to head. I found out my ex-boyfriend is into being a fuzzy kink? What's a fuzzy? Do you mean being a furry? What's a fuzzy? What does it mean to be a fuzzy? Tell me more. I want to know. 3D animation actually kicked off at Disney because the 3D artists weren't unionized. Oh, it always goes back to that, doesn't it? Every time you're like, why did this happen? Money, no unions. No labor laws. Back in my day. Back when people had unions. YouTubers have been trying to unionize for like a long time, and that has not really actually done anything that I can tell. Actually, I found out today that apparently they reduced the size of the play button. Like, it used to be you got a play button. I think it was bigger than a standard sheet of paper. And now they reduced it, and it's like, it went from being like this to like this. Like, it's like medium small book size, like bigger than a romance novel, smaller than a hardcover. And honestly, I'm not totally opposed to the plaques being smaller. I actually have not gotten my silver play button yet, even though I qualified for it like 5 years ago. I never got around to it. And actually having a smaller one might make it easier to display. It would make it harder to see in like the background of a video, but honestly, I'm probably not going to put it in the background of a video. I don't know how I would incorporate that into a set design, to be honest. That like, because I don't really care about how many subscribers I have. Like that is kind of a silly metric. But I might like, you know, other people get to display their work awards if they win something professionally. Why can't I do it? You know? It just seems fair. Fuzzy does sound like furry. It does. Listen, I don't want to... I'm sorry I made a mistake. I actually meant furry kink. Oh, that makes more sense. I mean, not all... I mean, I guess, can you be a furry as a kink? I feel like furries normally are extraordinarily adamant that they are not kinky people doing kink stuff. They just like wearing fursuits. Because there's having a fetish, like there's like a plushie fetish, but that's like, and I think that can overlap with being a furry, but that's a different thing. Listen, I don't know what's going on with your ex-boyfriend. I don't really know how much we need to talk about this exactly, but like, yes, it does happen. That would be my statement on the matter. All right, looking for another question. Also, proof that the chat worked, as it should. Do you have any other podcast recommendations? Like for kink or just for life? I don't really listen to podcasts. The only podcast I listen to with any level of regularity is Behind the Bastards. That's pretty much it if you're looking for a general podcast recommendation. Kink podcasts, there's obviously What's a Safe Word, like we talked about. There's Loving BDSM. There's American Sex. There's Off the Cuffs. There's a couple of asexual ones. There's the Ace Couple. They're probably my favorite asexual podcast. And that's about who I know is like still regularly making podcast content. I think Dan and Dawn Williams might still make a podcast. I don't really like listen to podcasts too much, and if I'm listening to one, it's like usually either if it's a YouTube video or it's like a long car trip, which I don't do very, very often. Robert Evans is fantastic. I feel like I identify with Sophie a lot. Like Robert is like, I have known many people in my life who are Roberts, and I am their Sophie. I'm sort of also my own Sophie in a way, which is funny. Be the Sophie you want to see in the world. The furry fetish art market is booming. Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, there's the people who... Oh, fuck, I just spilled... I'm putting on, like, a nail treatment, and I just definitely, like, tipped over the thing. Well, is it almost empty anyways? No, it's still pretty full. That's okay, I didn't totally ruin it. That's so annoying. Glad it wasn't actual nail polish. That would have been a huge pain in the ass. There's definitely some furries who do it for sexual reasons, but not all furries are like that. I mean, yeah, that's kind of the point that like, this is what I believe. Okay, so there's what a lot of furries say when they're like being interviewed is like, no, it's not a sex thing at all. It's just a fandom, and like it's just because we like dressing up and expressing ourselves. I think that there are definitely people who just like it as like an art thing and as a community thing, especially because a lot of people that are furries are also neurodivergent, and I think that there is a lot of overlap with that, and like it providing like sort of a safe space for socializing. And outside of that, I think there are definitely, especially online, a lot of people that are into it for sexual reasons, for fetish reasons. They overlap a lot. Like there is like plushy fetishes, latex fetishes, inflation. Listen, you don't need me to tell you all the different furry fetish crossover art that exists on the internet. That's, you get the idea. So there are a lot of people that have it as like a sex thing for them. I'm not sure how integrated the two communities are. I imagine there's like some kind of separation involved because there's like, minors who do furry stuff. So you got to have some kind of separation, right? There's also minors who go to furry conventions, which I find is an interesting problem because, like, in the kink community, it's like very obviously 18 plus or even like 21 plus only. But with furry fandoms, you kind of have to set it up like it's like an 18 plus only after dark thing, and then do things behind closed doors, and then have the rest of the event GA, which doesn't always work out. I think Jenny Nicholson has, from her BronyCon video, like talked about how there was a lot of like inappropriate like sexual art like very prominently displayed in the artist alley, which is kind of a problem when you have an all ages event. Like, I don't know if an 11-year-old needs to see like horny dragon lady waifu pillow, or like wolf schlong. I feel like we could put that behind a curtain. I think that would be okay. But you know what? I'm not a furry. Maybe I shouldn't speak on their behalf. But yeah. The whole furry community is completely saturated with erotic furry everything, and almost everything you see or read is smut. I mean, all right, also somebody who's in the know, I guess. But then it's funny because, like, I know, like, even on like live streams and stuff, we've watched like furry documentaries, and like even like we watched one recently that was about like inflatables. Like inflatables in the furry community, which like very obviously seem to be like an inflation kink thing, but then they spent a lot of the documentary like talking around it and being like, oh well, like some people like it as a sex thing, but also like inflatables are just fun, and like I don't know if it's like embarrassment over like being into a sex thing like too much, or trying to normalize it and not seem too weird. I was like, okay, sure, why not? I guess, you know, I can't tell them that they are into a sex thing when they're not saying that themselves, but you know, that kind of thing happens a lot. That's also my dog's being very cute. Hi, puppy. What are you doing? I know I moved. Oh, we're flopping over again. It seems a lot of the furry stuff is the lady doth protest too much, apparently. And listen, I like furries. I got no problems with furries. Listen, you have to be part of a hate group for me to have an issue with you, basically. Like, I'm very like, furries are fine. Their kinks are fine. I just find it kind of funny and interesting. Like, I want to figure out, like, okay, if it is a kink thing, why don't you want to say that? Like, what's happening? Is it like embarrassment? Is it trying to not misrepresent the community? Because I've noticed that too with like kink. When people do interviews for kink stuff, a lot of, especially with like pet play, people will be very upfront about like, oh no, it's not a sex thing at all. It's not a fetish thing. Because that's like the first question that people will ask is like, so is this like a sex thing, or like what happens? And I think it is like true for kink, obviously, that there, especially for pet play, there's a pretty like bold separating line between like pet play for fun in like a bonding way, and pet play as deprived sexual fantasy. Or like some people do both, but a lot of people are only one or the other. And most pet play spaces online, unless you're in like the gay men's community, are not going to be sex forward at all. So that's like a whole other thing. I'll answer this one because I saw it, and then I'll go back to the older questions I know I didn't get to yet, because it's kind of related to what we were talking about with like conventions and everything. What's your opinion on kink in public? For example, walking subs on a leash in public. So that's going to be a no for me, dog. I know different places in the world probably have different standards, so I can only speak to my own personal standards as an American that lives in a very anti-sex culture that does not like public displays of affection outside of a man and a woman kissing romantically, unless they're in a bar, and then maybe they can get a little more frisky with it. So, in my opinion, I do not like public sex acts, public kink acts that are visible and obvious to other people around them, right? Like, you're not being sly if you're like walking your girlfriend on a leash in a park. First of all, it's fucking gross to be on your hands and knees in a dog park in the grass with no gloves, no fucking bare feet half the time, collecting God knows what level of bacteria and viruses that are just waiting for a human vector. That seems repulsive to me. Maybe that's part of it for some people. I feel like that's a terrible idea, just to talk about the leash walking thing specifically for a minute. But also like public sex in a park, having your partner like kneel next to you when you're at a cafe instead of having them sit in a regular chair, having somebody dress up as like an inflatable latex doll or like a French maid outfit and then like walking them around the mall or like going grocery shopping. I don't think any of that is appropriate. Everyone else around you knows what you're doing, and 9 times out of 10 you are going to be interacting with service workers who cannot consent to seeing you and also have no ability to leave and are literally forced to interact with you and observe what you're doing because they have to be, smiling at the front counter to take orders from Starbucks. And so if you're in their field of view or if you're making an order, they have no choice but to interface with you. And I feel like that's very inappropriate, and that should be, for anyone, a very clear-cut example of why it's inappropriate to do kink in public. Because like other people make the argument, oh, well, if somebody doesn't like it, they don't have to look at it. Well, when you're sitting outside of a Starbucks and your partner is like, in a full latex outfit that's like semi-sheer and is like showing off their nipples or whatever, like the service workers who are at the Starbucks like have to interact with you. Like they can't do anything about that. So like saying that like, oh, well, somebody doesn't like it, they don't have to look. Like there's that isn't actually true for a lot of scenarios because people have the least amount of choice. I think there are, like, that's why we have public dungeons, so that way you can go, and if you're a voyeur, if you're an exhibitionist, you can go and get those needs met there. There's really no proper reason to go and actually do it in a park. I don't like to go for the, like, it's harming the children to see somebody being walked on a leash. Like, I don't think it's necessarily going to, like, give a child lifelong trauma to see a fully clothed person on all fours being walked on a leash, because I don't have any context for what that means. I don't think it's, like, that's the reason why it's wrong necessarily on its own, but I think just, like, respecting other people's consent is important. However, I think there are some ways of doing some kinks that are technically happening in public, but that are discreet enough to where other people don't necessarily know what's going on, right? Like wearing a metal day collar. I think that's fine. Based on one of the streams, one of the videos we watched last night during stream, having a temporary tattoo of a barcode or a pair of handcuffs, that's fine. Wearing a cheeky t-shirt with like a funny phrase on it that says, one of the like ball gag, like, my boyfriend said to make him a sandwich, so I made him a sub. Like, I think that's like, unless you're going to a daycare, time and place to go with the Honey Westbrook. But I, at my birthday dinner, God, that's still good so many years later. It makes me crack up. Anyways, I think that's like a cheeky t-shirt with like a text on it, not like, there's a naked lady dressed up like a pony, and then there's like a cheeky text phrase, there's a difference there for me in terms of what I think is probably appropriate or not. So like wearing t-shirts, or like whispering something to a partner, texting them when you're out in public, having them wear, Benoit balls or something when you're at dinner. I don't really have a problem with that. Or like wearing bondage under clothing where like it's not visible. Like, there's been times when like this is a long time ago now because I don't really go to the movies these days, but I'd like wear bondage and I'd put on like my boyfriend's sweater and like you totally couldn't tell that I was wearing anything at all, but like while we were at the movie the whole time I had a full on like chest harness on, or I was wearing a really like thick long skirt and like I added like a thigh harness on and no one could tell, and like it wasn't like I didn't do it in such a way that other people were gonna see it. Like somebody would have had to like literally lift up my skirts or like take my like hoodie off to be able to tell that something was there. So that kind of thing I think is okay. Actually I have a whole video where I've talked about like public play and how to do it in a way that's more discreet. Obviously different people are going to have different lines for what's moral. This is just where mine is. Some people are going to be more conservative, some people are less conservative. If you really want to do a fantasy at like a park, do it do it after dark, do it after, like, make sure there's no one else around, you know, choose a smaller park that no one ever goes to. Like, there's ways to do things there's like, I'm gonna go in the middle of a day on a Saturday when there's 50 people in this park and do it, versus I'm gonna plan to do it on like a Tuesday night at like 9:30 p.m. when I know no one's going to be there because I've checked on 2 previous Tuesdays at this time and no one's ever there. There's no Tai Chi groups or whatever. It just is going to be totally empty. But also keep in mind that other people are not necessarily going to know that what you're doing is consensual. So if somebody sees you taking off your girlfriend's pants at a park and putting her up against a tree, they might not know that you are doing a consensual sex thing as opposed to like raping a jogger. So be cautious about what things you're doing, how visible they are. Probably don't do anything involving a sex act. Like, you know, it's high risk, not necessarily certain it's high reward. If you want to do something out in the wilderness, go to a campsite. Get an Airbnb way out in the woods. You know, make sure there's no cameras or whatever, but like, you know, there's options. If you want to do something that's like private but out on a, you know, you can go on a camping trip. You can like rent a trailer. There's things that you can do that facilitate this fantasy happening without it being at like the family park where everyone's kids are at, you know? Just be smart. I know, I was so scandalous. Yeah. As a young person, harnesses are absolutely mainstream. Why is it when you said that I thought of like a child harness? Like the ones that are meant for like kids that want to run away. It's like I had that for my boyfriend only because he's really ADHD. Like honestly, that might be kind of funny. Insulting. But if it's consensual, it could be funny. I've met some people who don't know an appropriate time and place to suspend people from trees. Oh, that's a whole other thing. Don't get me started on that shit. I definitely, like, you know, like, I've done things in, like, you know, national forests and, like, you know, but we did things like that were out of the way, away from other campsites. You know, we had spotters to check to see if anyone was coming, so, like, we would cover up or, like, throw up a tarp or something. You know, if somebody did come around... Because, you know, sometimes hikers just kind of fucking wander wherever they feel like, and they don't know where they're going. Sometimes people just show up. So you want to be cautious. But, like, there's a way of doing it that's more or less appropriate. But, yeah, there's a lot of people who take the tact, specifically with rope bondage, that, like, there's a very famous spot in Seattle. It's called Gasworks Park. That a lot of people love doing rope at because there's a lot of cement structures there that are like fairly easy to tie off of, and it's like very pretty and it's in a natural environment, and you know it's like doing the suspension thing off of the luggage car at a hotel. It's like a rite of passage for people that are riggers in Seattle to have shots like that. And a lot of people will openly tie there when there's obviously other people around. And after like the third time somebody does that, I guarantee people who work in the offices nearby, families who go there regularly for lunch or to take their kids there, or tourists who just know the reputation of the area, like, you think what you're doing is going to be passed off as some kind of like weird aerial art. Baby girl, we live in the age of TikTok. A lot of people know what these things are now. You're not being that discreet. I think it's, you know, maybe you could get away with it if it's like, well, my partner is like fully clothed in like REI athletic gear, and she has like a Swiss seat on or something, and it looks kind of like maybe like a rock climbing practice thing. Like, okay, maybe that, but most people aren't doing that. I've seen actually a lot of photos at Gasworks that involve at least partial nudity. So there are people who are just like taking their tops off and putting their nipples out everywhere. You know, and it's a very busy, very popular public park, especially in the summer. People are going to see it. A lot of people find that to be perfectly defensible and fine. I don't. It's outside of my assessment of what I think is ethical to do, because it's so popular and it's so high exposure. Because also, like, you have to keep in mind, again, as I like to say, everyone has a smartphone these days. Everyone is looking to make a viral TikTok and to have their 5 minutes of fame. And if they can make a video of what the weird, freaky sex perverts are doing in a public park, they will do it and they will post it. And Liz of TikTok will find it, and other hate accounts will find it. And you will suddenly end up all over the front pages of the worst websites on the whole internet that are calling you a sex degenerate and trying to get you fired from your job. Do you want that to happen because because you think it's hot to do a rope bondage scene that 50,000 other people have done in Gasworks Park, like, I hope that, like, you care more about your financial well-being than that, but, like, maybe some people don't give a shit. I don't know. If only I'd known I was kinky still living out in the woods. True. You could always claim that it was performance art. I mean, yeah, that's true. I think that's like a lot of people will say, oh, well, it's performance art. Well, not everyone who's doing suspension bondage at Gasworks is doing it in a way that kind of seems like performance art. I gotta be honest with you. Like, I think people will say that there's a way you can do it. Well, yeah, like, again, you're fully clothed. There's no sexual touching. The types of, like, because there's, like, it depends on the style of rope you're doing as well. Because there's rope bondage that is, like, very utilitarian and does not come across as overtly sexual. And then there's rope bondage that's like, I'm going to squeeze the tits together and I'm going to make them pop out of, like, this person's shirt. And that looks pretty fucking sexual. And, like, I don't really know if you can pass that off as performance art. But also, like, you know, again, even if you are saying it's performance art, you're going to get people who are going to film you and take photos, and you may not have control over where that goes or what consequences that leads to. I think especially in today's climate, especially because of the rise of TikTok and shorts and everything else that's going on, especially even if you are in, like, Portland, San Francisco, you're in Seattle, like, very liberal places, there's a lot of conservatives who specifically target those cities because they're looking for stuff that they can use to say, look at the liberal hellscape of Portland, look how disgusting and degenerate it is, to, like, drum up hatred towards it. And do you want your face to be in the Tim Pool video because he saw a, like, Libs of TikTok video where Libs of TikTok was like, look at these filthy, kinky weirdos trying to expose our children to sex acts in a public park? Do you want the consequences from that? You might think, yeah, I don't care because I'm self-employed as an artist and I do sculptures and none of my clients give a shit if I, like, you know, are, like, I'm on Libs of TikTok's account, whatever. Or you or your partner or your husband or who, like, you know, somebody who's really close to you might be a teacher or a daycare worker or a nanny or, like, somebody who works with kids where, like, you know, direct association with you or because you're married, like, could actually really impact their career. So just be smart. That's all I'm saying. Just be smart. It's my one request is for people to think forward at the consequences, because you, like, you know, everyone always thinks it's not going to happen to them. And then suddenly you're in a viral TikTok where somebody films you, like, having a meltdown in a grocery store. Or, like, there was that one gal that walked into, like, I think it was an Erewhon or something, or, like, a local grocery store, who was, like, a survival sex worker who took up a client who wanted to be walked around, you know, in a puppy hood on a leash in a grocery store, and she did it because she really needed the money. And I'm sure that she sort of assumed that, like, well, even if people photograph this, it's not going to be a huge deal, it's not a problem. Well, then, like, that thing went mega viral, and a bunch of people, even mainstream creators, were talking about it, and, like, it had a lot of really negative consequences. So people assume that those kinds of things are not going to happen to them. And it only takes once for your face and your legal name and everything else to be leaked and doxed by people who do not care about your safety and actually want you to feel threatened and feel unsafe. So just be very cautious. Do you have recommendations for manufacturers of floggers with fast delivery and quality products? Way-In Studios and Firebird Leather. I know they both have in-stock floggers, and they're very good. Firebird Leather is how it sounds. Way-In Studios is W-I-A-N in the studios. They used to be local. I think they're out of Phoenix now. And they have a lot of, basically all their stuff is in stock only. But they have really, really high quality stuff. She's making floggers for a long time. Ooh, she has a small brown and black moose flogger that actually looks really nice. Ooh, she has some moose floggers in stock. Fucking get on that, people. If you want a moose flogger, they're a little hard to find. Easier in America than in other places. But if you want a flogger, I'd go to either Way-In Studios or Firebird Leather. Outdoor stuff on a camping trip would seem hot, but I have a mosquito allergy and would rather die than get bit by them in any private areas. You know what? Good point. Not as much as, oh wait, no, definitely keeping that fantasy only. I mean, you could always do something inside of a cabin, in the woods, and then you can scream as loud as you want. I get that though. It depends on, I have reactions to mosquitoes in different places. Years ago when I was in Belize, at the very end of our trip, I had a terrible reaction to the mosquitoes that were in like the more inland part of Belize. Because the last place we went to was a restaurant that was by like a little pond. And I think everyone else was kind of okay, but like my ankles and feet were like, I had like dozens of mosquito bites on like each, like both my feet and on my ankles, and they were like my whole like bottom part of my leg and like my foot was like totally bruised up. It was real bad. 0 to 10, don't. A moose flogger? Oh, like a flogger that's made out of moose leather. Usually it's a moose that was like roadkill, or sometimes I imagine it's from a moose that was legally shot. That's like relatively rare. It's like, or it's like a moose that was killed by like an indigenous tribe or something. I'm not sure how every person who has moose leather sources it, but that's the general frame of how I've heard it's been gotten before. All right, looking for some more questions here. Scanning. Apparently, yeah. Listen, don't get me started. I actually thought about speaking of like YouTubers that don't talk to minors, I briefly mentioned a while ago Pro Jared, who got called out for allegedly soliciting nude photos from minors in his audience, but then everyone kind of forgot about that and just focused on like the marriage, polyamory, cheating, exposing our text messages drama with his now ex-wife. And so everyone forgot about that. And he also basically said that like, oh, well, no, I checked their ages and they told me that they were adults. But like the way that he checked ages was like, they were like halfway through our conversation. And then like right before they did something, he was like, wait, you're 18, right? And then they said, yep. And then that was it. That was the extent of the age verification this man did when interacting with his fans. Fantastic stuff. Turns out Pro Jared didn't learn anything because he got uncanceled, and everyone just kind of was fine with him existing and is now defensive of him because, you know, he was falsely labeled as something he wasn't. Turns out he still really likes sexting his fans and has actually, like, according to himself, has had sex with his fans and will do it again. I feel like, am I crazy? Am I the only YouTuber who feels like it's a bad idea to sext your fans, have actual intercourse with your fans, exchange nudes with your fans, check IDs by like last minute being like, wait, you're 18, right? And then just like taking somebody's word for it? is this what happens? Is this just what happens when you get to a certain level of fame and you're not asexual? Is you just go, you know what I should do today? I should use my power and influence to make people send me nude photos. Just like, oh my god. Like, even if it's not technically illegal, I think that it says something about your character as a person if you are like, you know what I like to do? I like to use my influence to say that, like, I like to get nude photos from specifically my fans. Like, what are you doing? Please don't do that. I always wanted to recommend you review Cody Ko's videos reacting to pet players, pony play, and puppy play, and then this happened. I feel like this is going to sound weird. Maybe someone else can relate to this. I feel like Cody Ko is a name I've heard on YouTube about 50 times, and all information I have about him seeps out of my brain immediately. I think he's a YouTuber who's younger and did prank videos, and apparently he's done reaction videos. So he probably has like soy face videos where he's been like, oh my god, somebody doing puppy play, ah! And like, you know, being crazy with it. But also I don't think he's a good person. Just instinctually, I don't know what happened. I don't know what he did or did not do. Seems like the kind of person I would, like, you know, want my younger siblings hanging out with. I am frankly astonished that no one has said, well, I checked, but they gave me a fake ID. He may have also, like, the Pro Jared, it's been years since I looked at this, so maybe I'm not fully remembering it. He may have claimed at some point that he checked IDs, but he never actually showed proof that he checked IDs, which if you had been doing that as a habit, would you not have many potential screenshots you could share of, like, if you're gonna save the photos, why wouldn't you save a screenshot that's like, here's my ID that proves I'm not a minor, like, you know, or not even just sharing the ID, but like maybe sharing the Discord message or the Twitter DM or whatever that says, like, you know, here's my ID, you know, and then you typing something that says, oh yeah, I looked at that says you're, you know, that you're above 18. Like, having some kind of record. But also, at the same time, regardless, even if they're like literally 18 or 19 or whatever, if you're 36 and your fans are 18 years old and you're soliciting them for nude photos, or just not even like actively soliciting them, and like, you know, you're just leaving a Tumblr open where people can just, if they want to, can message you and then exchange photos that way. But people know about it. And like, there's a Discord chat and there's other ways. Like, you're not actively asking for it, but you are like putting out a giant sign that says, put nudes here, parentheses, but only if you want to. Like, all right, buddy, okay. You're basically he's putting out like an alms basket to be like, hey, anyone got any nudes for me? Just fascinating. Just don't, even if they're above 18, why do you want to get specifically nudes from 18-year-old fans? Why is that? Like, there's so many OnlyFans creators. There's so many hot people on the internet. Why do you need to get nudes from people who are your fans that are just for you? What psychologically is happening there? Because I feel like we're not talking about that. Anyways, that's just my pro Jared thoughts. Honestly, I only saw him from collabing with some kind of commentary YouTuber, and then had one of those vids immediately after and was immediately put off about any other content from him, thankfully. I mean, you know, good on ya. I mean, I've never personally watched any like David Dobrik or Tana Mojo or like Cody Ko or any of those people. I'm not into that kind of content. Like, I watch, my favorite YouTuber is like Climate Town. I don't really watch like that kind of content on YouTube, but even when I was younger I didn't. So like, it's just outside of my purview to even like get why that's a thing. But like, some people like vlogs, some people like watching people doing wild stuff, but that's really not me. Doing wax play with mosquito repelling candles. I would say, before we just take random advice from other people on stream, the thing you have to be concerned about with that is I don't recommend any candles that have any kind of fragrance in them, any kind of essential oils, because that can create hot spots that can burn you, and it can also affect the melting temperature of the candles. And especially if it's meant to be used outdoors, you're probably going to be interacting with a candle that has a relatively higher melt temperature than a candle that's made for wax play. So maybe having one burn near you during a scene. I feel like if we're getting into adding fragrances and essential oils into a candle, we're getting into some potential like excessively risky territory without, you know, you have to like test it to see what temperature it melted at, and it probably varies by brand, and like it just... there's a reason why we don't use like Yankee candles for wax play, you know. And essentially a citronella candle is like a Yankee candle but for bugs, so. Wax play with mosquito repellent, I believe these burn hotter. Well, how about you just don't put any chemicals on your body and then try to burn it? How about we just don't try to give ourselves chemical burns? How about we don't try to have to go to the ER after driving like 30 minutes into the wilderness? How about we don't do that? How about instead we try some other things before that point? Just no. Yeah. Okay. More questions. Let's see. Take a little look here. Oh, good question. Little Adventure asked, what's a way to discuss how to balance a dynamic of two switches? Oh gosh, that's like a whole... Let me think about that. If you're trying to discuss a dynamic with two switches... I guess it depends. So there's like, are you in a relationship? Are you dating? Are you play partners? What kind of switches are you? There's a lot of factors to consider here. There's a lot of different questions that you could answer and want to ask in this thing. But what I would probably... Okay, I don't know what... My YouTube chat is like glitching out here on my phone. And now my live stream is frozen. I gotta go back. Okay, there we go. So I would probably say, if you wanted to sit down and like talk about like negotiating a dynamic for being switches. Okay, one, figure out, okay, what kind of switches are you? Which way do you lean? Are you more of a top? Are you more of a bottom? Are they more of a dom, more of a sub? And how does that affect the dynamic between the both of you? Because like you could also be a top leaning switch, but feel very bottomy towards this person you're negotiating with. So it's like generally, what do you lean towards? What are the other relationships? What do you feel towards this person? Then, what needs do you want to have met? What kinds of scenes do you want to do? How often do you want to top or bottom or be dom or sub? How do you want to communicate that? Do you want to have it be set up where it's like we alternate weeks? Do you want to have it set up to where you have some kind of signal you use? Maybe you hand, like a classic example is like, handing somebody a particular mug. Or, wearing a certain color of clothing or putting on a certain piece of jewelry. And that's meant to signal, hey, I'm ready to be a dom now. Hey, I'm ready to bottom today. Come up and approach me and talk about this. I've also seen people do this where they use like certain emojis. Like maybe when your partner asks you every day, like, hey, how are you feeling today? That can also be a way to check in about like, are you feeling more toppy, more bottomy, more subby, more dommy? And then you can respond in like emojis, or you can just clearly say like, today I'm feeling more submissive, or today I'm not really sure what I want to do. I'm open to what you want to do. And you can have just that open line of communication. So have some way to signal how you want to have your needs met. And then if you do want to have it be a like on the fly, we're each kind of telling each other what we want and what we're feeling in that moment, or maybe you want to have it to be more strict where it's like, during the week I'm the dominant and during the weekend you're the dominant. Because like different people have, like some people it's very like it's very day by day and it just really depends on their mood, and so they don't really do well if you're trying to just tell them, well, you're only going to get these 2 preset days to be a top, so like take advantage of it even if you're not really feeling like it. Whereas other people, they kind of always feel like doing anything whenever, and so it actually is helpful for them to have a more rigid schedule that they can rely on and can follow and can plan for. So it really just depends on what is best fitting with your style and what you want to do. And then I would also talk about like how you want to navigate things when you're both feeling like you want to do the same thing. So if you're both feeling toppy or bottomy or dommy or subby, how do you negotiate that? What do you do in that moment? Some people like to have like, we're both feeling dommy, so we're going to do like a switch fight. We're going to do some rough body play. We're going to see who can out dom the other, and whoever wins, gets to be the dom that night or for that week or something. And that could be really satisfying for people. Or if you both want a bottom, see who picks a short straw. Who's going to be the top, even if they don't want to be. But also at the same time, you have to balance that with keeping in mind that I think overall it's negative to force yourself to do stuff that you're not really feeling like and you don't want to do, and that can erode the relationship. So if you're both feeling really bottomy consistently and one of you is consistently having to like take that short straw and be the top when you don't really want to be, that's going to cause some issues, that's going to cause some resentment, and it's probably best at that point if you like maybe more actively pursue other play partners, if you try to find other ways to get your needs met, or try to do like just really focus in on like, okay, what kinds of play can we do when this is where we're at, where we feel the least bad about it at the end, and feel like the least like we're being put out of our way to do things we're not really actively wanting to do. So yeah, that's probably what I would do to discuss how to balance the dynamic of 2 switches. But at the same time, and this is like similar to polyamory, I have to be careful about not like keeping a tally in a malicious way. I think a lot of people initially in polyamory, when they're first getting started, I think it's like a good idea to keep track of like either mentally or like literally physically on a list or a calendar, like, well, you're having this many dates with this person and this many dates with this person and this many dates with me, and you're spending this much time on dating apps and you're spending this much time every month going on dates with new people, and then like they try to like figure out a way essentially to like make themselves feel bad about like how much time other people are spending on them or not. Just to really, you can get into it with good intentions, just to be like, I want to make sure everyone is getting their needs met and is having equitable time with all their partners. That can very quickly spiral into people feeling bad because they're like, oh, well, you know, none of, like, my partner is, you know, spending more time with this person this month, or they're spending more time going on first dates, or, you know, last month we had 35 hours of dates, and this month we only had 32 hours of dates. And like, oh no, what if it's a downward trend? And like, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not really going to be helpful. It's not about the absolute numbers. It's about where you're both at in that moment and during that month. And like, hey, do you have the time? Is it like a time management issue? Is it some issue with, you know, maybe they're more focused on finding new partners, but you want to spend more time with people you already have in your life? So that's one thing that in polyamory happens a bit with new people. And I think with switching, a similar thing can also happen, where instead of it being about like you're spending this much time with this or that partner, it might be like, well, but I had to spend, you know, 90% of this month being a bottom and only got to top 10% of the time. So that's not fair because, you know, I didn't get to do what I wanted as much as I wanted to do. And it can end up being very tit for tat, where it's like, well, but you got to do this whole thing last month where you got to have a whole weekend, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, it's not going to be helpful. It's not going to actually solve the problem. It's just going to make everybody involved mad. So instead of making yourself mad and being frustrated, and don't make tallies, but I think generally just check in with yourself to be like, hey, are my needs getting met right now? Not in like an absolute, like, you had 7 days where you got to be a top and I only had 2. You know, just communicate, hey, you know, so I want to check in, you know, from last month. I feel like now I want to have a little bit more of an opportunity to top. Is that something that we can make more time for? And maybe that means you're doing one extra scene every month, or you're going to maybe an extra play party, or maybe you meet up with other play partners that you can top with more than with the person that's maybe your primary partner. Like, there's lots of ways to have a solution to that. It just takes communication and not being not looking for ways to create strife in the relationship dynamic, essentially, which is very tempting because I think we're always like, it's a natural tendency, I think, for people to want to monitor and check, to be like, oh my gosh, am I being taken advantage of? Am I, you know, am I getting the short end of the stick here? Am I really being treated the way that I want to be treated? And I think we tend to look at metrics for that are like hard numbers and maybe don't actually really accurately reflect reality. Play fighting and trying to out-dom each other sounds like my dream dynamic. Oh yeah, that's switch fighting. It's a big old thing. I have some friends who are together in both switches, and they alternate the months who's dominant and submissive and vice versa. Yeah, I think that's a good point too, because with specifically dom sub switching and not just like top bottom switching, because that's a whole like power dynamic. That's not just like, oh, like on Fridays, some Fridays I do the flogging, and other Fridays my partner does the flogging to me. When you're getting into like rules and structure, that's a lot harder to just do on and off day by day. So doing it as like maybe every other week or every month, and having it be more durable and preset, that like, okay, so this month I'm going to be in control, and then next month you're going to be in control. So that way you can both have time to like check in about the rules and refamiliarize yourself with the standard's going to be, because it can be really hard to just suddenly be like, oh, well, I thought I was going to be a dom today, but now I'm actually the submissive. That can actually be quite jarring. So having a firm day and time when you know it's like, okay, so tomorrow that's going to be the start of my time being submissive, so I'm going to do these things. I know this is coming. I know what my rules are. And I think if it's very back and forth and random, it can actually be harder to really like enjoy being in that structure, because it's more random. And like, some people like the randomness. Some people like that it's very you know, just day by day. But I think a lot of people benefit, especially in power exchange, with like knowing what's going to happen and knowing what the rules are. So yeah, it's a good point. Good point. Thanks for sharing. Board game, winner gets to choose. Oh, that's a good one. Chore wheel, yeah, definitely all good ideas for sure. Good chore wheel is good for not even just switches, but just any kind of DS relationship. Especially if chores like a punishment thing and they don't like cleaning, they're not a service sub. That's a good one. Or a board game, winner gets to choose. That's a great one. All right. Oh, chill polyamory, I know from Instagram, I think. I didn't know that they were starting on YouTube. We really need more polyamorous educators on YouTube because there's not very many of us, and it would be nice to have other people talk about it too, not just me. So that would be great. Very pro that. All right, talking about Disney adults. Marvel. Maybe fuzzies are a subset of furries. That would be funny. Do you have any updates for getting into water sports? Updates. Did I talk about this at some point? And like I remember. I mean, I guess I have an old video. I really need to remake that video talking about water sports because it's very, very old. But water sports. Do I have any updates about getting started? Getting into them. So here's my hot take about water sports. That's not the hot take. Not me drinking my water. My hot take about water sports is I feel like oftentimes water sports is sort of like having sex in the shower or like having sex in a hot tub. It can seem really hot in the abstract, and then when you do it, there's especially if you are the person who's doing the peeing has a penis, it can actually be a lot less hot than you envision because it turns out it can be really hard to pee on demand, and it may not be as voluminous as you expected. So I think having appropriate expectations for how it's going to go, as in it's probably not going to be like your fantasy and may actually be psychologically difficult for your partner to be able to do. That's really important. As far as getting into it, I know some people had I remember when I made the video, people had a weird reaction because I suggested peeing in the shower by yourself is one way to get used to peeing on your own, because a lot of people are very pee shy and they have a lot of difficulty urinating when other people are around, and getting more comfortable peeing in circumstances that feel wrong to you can help you with that. And a lot of people were like, oh my god, that's so silly, everyone already pees in the shower. And it's oh, absolutely not everyone does, first of all, because I definitely don't, and I was definitely not raised to do that. Other people might. Maybe it's more common with people with penises to just pee in the shower, but that's not something I ever did. But I think it is helpful for people to get more used to things, to be able to pee around other people. Even if it's just having your partner sit outside the door, wait outside the door when you're peeing and that they're there. Or peeing, with the door open and your partner seeing you. Just creating progressively more circumstances where your partner is around you peeing to where it becomes normalized and it's not a difficult thing for you to be able to do. But that's more advice for the top side of things. I think for actually constructing a scene, doing something in the shower is the easiest way. Have the water going and then just have your partner kneel and just see what happens. There's not really you can get more advanced with it, right? If you're really getting into water sports, you can do some pretty advanced things with water sports, but just getting started into it, that's probably the easiest way, because you don't have to set up tarps, you don't have to clean anything, it's out of the ordinary, you don't have to worry about it leaving a smell behind on furniture or carpet. You can, if you do want to do it on the bed, I haven't tested this, but theoretically you could use one of those, what's the brand? Not Pleaser. What's the brand that makes the sex furniture? What is that? Why am I forgetting what that name is? Well, I know I'm forgetting. It's because my brain doesn't work anymore. all capital letters, searching for sex towel. Is it sport sheets? I think that's what it is. I just thought of it. Didn't actually see it. It might be sports sheets. 2 plurals. Wait, is this it? Maybe not, actually. Oh, they do. That is the blanket one. I was thinking of the one that makes a, like, furniture, like, because I know they also have a thing. Oh, Liberator. That's what it is. Liberator is sport sheets. That might work as well. I guess it depends on the volume that's being produced. But that's also something that you could look into as well. Ooh, they have a really cozy looking, like plush faux fur ottoman that looks very comfortable that I definitely don't have room for, but that if I did have room for, I would definitely consider getting. Not even just for fun, just to have it be like a giant dog bed, because it kind of looks like a giant dog bed, but I definitely don't have room for it anywhere. Could maybe put it in my room. I feel like that would be weird, though. Oh, well. Have to think about that some other time. Sex furniture. That's a whole other thing I haven't even really explored. Is it okay to ask questions in here? Is there a form or something? No, you can ask questions in here. I'm not going to necessarily get to everything. I try to go in order, but I do go based off of what is in the chat. You have a video from 10 years ago about getting into water sports, and you suggested that one starts with peeing in the shower. I mean, that's what I'm referencing. That's literally what I said. I know that I made a video talking about starting by peeing in the shower, and then people left me weird comments about it. Like, everyone already does that. That's a stupid suggestion. That's what I was literally talking about. So yes, I do know that I have a video from 10 years ago because I literally said that. I love water sports, but it's so messy and I'm too lazy to prep beforehand. Waterproofing the bed or floor, making sure there's towels, etc. And the current bathroom situation is unusable. Oh, that makes it hard. Well, I think we have yet another situation here where going out into the woods can help solve your problem. I'm just gonna rename this stream outdoor BDSM, because that's apparently what we're talking about today. Maybe I should make a video about outdoor BDSM. That would be a fun video. I'd like to make that. All right, title's updated. Now that we're all on. We're on theme here. Oh, no, yeah, I said it. To be clear, I am aware. Yes, exactly. Hubby here, peeing while up is very hard. Yes, I did not say that explicitly, but that is a big part of the thing, is if you find water sports to be arousing, it is difficult to impossible to pee while you have some form of an erection. If you have a vagina, it's a little easier. Also, women don't pee out of their vaginas, so just FYI, just in case, just to make that abundantly clear. Going out to the woods cannot be the solution to everything. I'm not saying it's the solution to everything, but if you don't want to pee on your furniture, and you don't want to pee in your bathroom, and you don't want to clean up anything afterwards, you can either risk getting arrested, or you can go out and having a sex offender registry situation happen, or you can go out into the woods. Pick your poison. Oh, goodness. Moral of the story, all kinks are better in the woods. I might be biased, but like a lot of them are better in the woods. Please do make that video though. I will, it's on the list. I'll probably do it before the end of summer because it feels a little topical. It feels very summery. But I like doing kinks outdoors, so that's me. Ooh. I just like pulled just a non-consensual hair pulling on myself. That was like, ooh. Actually I could feel it in like my whole arm. If a gag subbed pees in the woods, do they make a sound? Yes. Yes, they do. At least he doesn't have his machete regularly anymore. I feel like, honestly, a Robert Evans without regular access to his machete might just make him more desperate. I don't know if it's good that we left him without his emotional support machete. But yeah, that's my advice for getting into water sports. Keep it simple. Keep it easy to clean. If you want to get more advanced, invest in some tarps. Invest in some waterproofing devices that are meant for sex. And I think really it's just about, honestly, like wearing a blindfold can help. Making sure aiming to where you don't pee in the person's mouth or up their nose if they're not expecting that. That's a big one too. Recommend peeing onto the legs or onto the back. You can aim for the chest and you can end up peeing just a little bit higher and hitting them right in the mouth. And if they don't want to have pee in their mouth because that's outside of the risk profile or it's too gross to them, be cautious. But I honestly think that water sports, especially peeing on other people, is like overrated. I feel like that's overrated. I think water sports that involve like omaroshi and like being unable to pee, and what's the other one? Not like diapers. Oh, I guess that is also technically probably underrated for most people that aren't ABDLs. That and like forcing your partner to pee and like bathroom control, I think those are underrated. I feel like everyone just thinks about water sports as being a like peeing on other people thing, whereas water sports could be a whole wonderful world of fucked up weird shit that doesn't even actually like need to involve trying to control where the stream of pee is going. You can just skip that entirely if you don't want to have that part of the experience. How about walking somebody on a leash but upright? Probably still don't do that. That's probably... that's not as bad as walking someone on all fours. But I think unless it's Halloween, probably don't do that unless you want to be filmed in public. Listen, you can do whatever you want. If you decide that you're okay being filmed in public and being posted all over social media and having your name and your address and your home phone number and whatever leaked on some fucking Nazi website, do whatever you want. That's a risk you can choose to take. If you are, if the kink is doing the kink is more important to you than your personal safety or not being exposed on the internet, you can do whatever you want, but just, make sure that you are aware of what those risks are and that they are there before you start doing the kink. Inflatables was Ash Coyote's documentary. One of the interviewees had something like, I'm not going to lie, obviously some people have a sexual aspect with it, but it's not always the primary motivator. Yeah, I think I remember that. But it also was like, again, I think even in that's sort of a like, we're gonna not really talk about the sex part. We're gonna be like, yeah, for some people it's a sex thing, but it's not only a sex thing. I feel like that's still like talking around it to a certain extent. I said depraved. I don't know what. I don't know. Somebody just says it's depraved, not deprived. I'm pretty sure I said depraved, but whatever. No, you weren't pointing out grammar. But also it's not polite to do that either. Like, if you want to record yourself talking for 2 straight hours, and then have someone make fun of you and say it's funny to, mispronounce a word, go for it. I'm sure that'll be really fun for you. What about wearing butt plugs in public? I feel like that's fine. I feel like I'm like, wait, well, okay. Caveat on that. If it is a butt plug with a visible extension, like a tail, I know that I have seen like photos and videos that people have taken in public of somebody at like a Target wearing a butt plug tail under their skirt. And then obviously no underwear underneath it. Like, nobody was going to figure out why you had a tail coming out between your legs. That I think is inappropriate. If other people can tell it's there and it's coming out of your asshole or one of your genitals, probably don't wear that in public. Just as a baseline. No tails, no chains. If somebody can, it's like if you go to the beach and you have a chastity cage on, and you're wearing a really tight Speedo that makes it obvious that you're wearing a chastity device, even if it's technically hidden, I feel like that's probably still inappropriate. People can, like, you can say what you want about that. You can be like, oh, well, people should just get over it. It's not any of their business. And, like, I'm trying to, you know. But I also feel like a lot of people that do that are, like, they're not saying they're doing it for exhibitionist reasons, but they are kind of doing it because they want to expose the public to their kink. And I think, like, maybe other people don't agree with this, but I do think that there is a reason why motivations matter. And I think it does matter if you are somebody that's, like, just trying to, like, have a dynamic with your partner that's 24/7, and when you go out in public, it just, like, you know, your partner opens doors for you, or they order your food at a restaurant. I don't think that that's, like, you're not trying to, like, surreptitiously involve the public in your kinks. You're not trying to covertly, you know, be like, I'm going to make the waiter participate in our BDSM dynamic. You're just, like, living your life. Whereas I think a lot of people that are doing things that make it so other people, like, are going to see the kink that they're engaging in, like, you know, having a temper tantrum in the Build-A-Bear workshop, you know, having a chastity cage that's clearly visible through a swimsuit, you know, having a butt plug tail that somebody can see coming out from underneath a skirt that's, like, barely covering the person's genitals. A lot of people are motivated to do that because they want to expose themselves to non-consenting parties. And that has a name for it, and it's a clinical diagnosis. And if you are engaging in clinical exhibitionism because you want to expose yourself to non-consenting parties, that's something that's worth evaluating and looking on, you know, and figuring out, like, okay, can we work on that? Why are we this way? Like, that's something that, if, you know, you can develop a healthier relationship to your kinks. And if currently your kinks involve wanting to, like, have, because I think people don't even think about it in terms of, like, I want people who don't consent to see it, but they're kind of thinking about it like, ooh, wouldn't it be really hot if I was in public and, like, you know, there was a bunch of people who just noticed me, and they don't even think about it in terms of, like, a consent framework. They're just thinking about it like, it would be humiliating for me to experience this, but they're not really thinking about, like, how the other people are actors in their experience, but they're not really, their feelings about it don't matter outside of, like, giving humiliation to the person and, like, shaming the person who's the subject of the interaction, if that makes sense. 100% agree, Evie. The vanilla public didn't consent to participate in your kink as an audience. Intent and motivations are important, yeah. And it's, you know, and I will say this because, you know, Pride Month discourse always comes up. You know, I do think that Pride events are a little bit of a different scenario. Obviously, if it's something that's, like, designed for kink to be in public, we're talking about, like, a street fair or, like, adult-friendly Pride events. That's, you know, if you want to do something like walk your partner on a leash in those environments and it's within the rules of the event, that's different. You know, if you go to an event where it's like, you know, clothing optional, nudity allowed, you know, PDA allowed, like, okay, like, I think that's probably an environment where it's okay for you to walk your partner on a leash in public, technically, because that's within the rules of the space. Whereas it's usually not legal for you to be, without prior warning at least, it's not legal for you to be nude in public and being, like, you know, having sex acts committed upon you. So that is mostly what I am talking about with that. Hopefully that clarifies my stance on that. Plugs can be pretty easily hidden if it has a flashing light or a tail attached that might draw too much attention. Oh my god, a flashing light butt plug. People think of everything, honestly. People think of everything. Yeah, if part of the scene is getting the public to react to you in some way, or if they would naturally do so, I think you're making them part of the scene when they haven't consented to do so. Yeah, that's, like, the difference, like, the example that people will give of, like, well, like, if your partner has a foot fetish, it's inappropriate for you to wear sandals in public because they're getting off to it. Well, like, no one looks at sandals and thinks that that's, like, a sex thing, unless they're a foot fetishist, I guess. And they, well, maybe they don't even have to be a foot fetishist. They can just be like a shoe. I don't know. Are they into the sandal, or are they into being able to see more of the barefoot? Doesn't really matter. But, like, you know, the foot fetishes and shoe fetishes are not the same thing. As anyone with one of those fetishes will very strongly tell you. You know, not most people in public are not going to look at somebody wearing sandals and be like, oh, a sex act is occurring, and that they're going to think that a partner is like getting off to you wearing that in a way that would be like inappropriate in public. I think that kind of thing is like fine, but obviously if you're wearing a butt plug tail under a skirt where you're clearly not wearing underwear and people can almost see your genitalia, that's going to be more inappropriate than just like wearing something that's normal attire that people see every day. Also, be prepared to be banned from Target for life. If you do this anywhere in public and you're like, I think I can probably get away with this, are you prepared to be banned from that establishment for the rest of your life? Think about that too. Smear yourself with some spearmint plant leaves to ward off mosquitoes. Spearmint plants in the backyard will keep mosquitoes away also. Oh. I mean, yeah, I guess you could just wear like an anti-mosquito body spray. Okay. Oh, okay. 20-minute warning. If you have not yet had your question answered, or if you're not yet asked your question, please go ahead and ask it now. That would be the opportune time to do it, just because we have about 20 minutes left, and we've been having some long conversations here, so I want to make sure I get to as many as I can. I will be doing probably like a lightning round type thing once we get to a bit closer to the end of the stream, but thank you all so much for being here. No, we have Bandit. She's just on her bed. She's just a little farther away. She's just chilling. I know. She's an old lady. Let her walk slowly, all right. I know, she took herself to bed. She's like, it's time for bed. She's probably gonna stare at me from it eventually at some point. But also she'll probably get up as soon as I say the magical intonation of how I say goodbye when a stream is over. I agree about the ethics, about the exhibitionism I want to do. Yeah. I mean, that's why we have public play spaces. There's also like, there's like camping trips that people will do in big groups. Like there's options. If you want to do stuff in public around other people, there are ways to get that done, and maybe isn't going to be totally on demand. But if you look for it, if you plan for it, there are ways to get your kink experiences that you want to have without, violating the consent of random strangers in just, broad daylight. Yeah, there are things that make sense as a fantasy when the other people are really just actors in your head and they don't translate to reality well. Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't. I see this more as a problem with male submissives, and I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if that's like a toxic masculinity thing, if that's like you just watch a lot of porn and maybe that changes something. I don't know. Yeah, it's some people just don't ever like, unless they are made to by somebody else, they don't really stop and think, hey, so you have a fantasy in your head. What about how real people actually feel about things? Some people just don't have that level of connection to other humans, and honestly, maybe they don't even care. If hypothetically we were to do YouTube content not related to kink and sex, what would it be? I don't know, probably political commentary. It'd be something in like the commentary sphere, probably. But like not like general commentary. Like I'm not gonna make a video talking about Cody Ko or Tana Mojo doing something, but it would probably be like political commentary. But also there's so many people doing that, I don't feel like I'm like educated enough in that, like formally, for it to really be something that I'd really contribute to. But maybe it would make a difference. I don't know. Yeah, I was scandalous. All right. I'm never really surprised hearing YouTubers being inappropriate with kids at this point. Just really disappointed and disgusted. Yep. Sad but true. Honestly, not even surprised. I'm not surprised when I hear like celebrities are like, accused of domestic violence. Like it's so common. It's like, why is every YouTuber texting minors? And why is every celebrity like sexually harassing their coworkers or like beating up their wives. Like, why? Like, what are you doing? Like, is it just something that happens when you get a certain level of power that just like melts your empathy receptors and you just like aren't able to do that anymore? What is happening? Oh, wax play is very interesting to me. Mosquito repelling candles. Oh, we just talked about that. Yeah, floggers are expensive because tanning leather is, well, I don't know. To turn a profit on it, like the actual making process is pretty expensive. Sex education is important, but do you agree it would be wrong to make the way this is phrased is weird. But do you agree it would be wrong to make sex education mandatory in schools and that the consent of the parents should be respected? Okay, I'm going to tell you how that sounds. The way that that is phrased makes it sound like you believe that the obvious answer is that, well, of course I agree that it's wrong to require every single kid ever to have sex ed in schools with no exceptions, because what about the consent of the parents? I think that the consent of the kid is actually more important than the consent of the parents. Like, unless they're really young and they can't, if they're like 4 or like they're pre-verbal, okay, that's, one thing. But I care about what the kids actually like consent to more than just the parents that are not receiving the education. And especially with sex ed, this is why I have trouble with that, is there are a lot of parents who are not good people that intentionally try to prevent their children from learning about sex for as long as possible because they are sexually abusing their children and they are trying to prevent them from knowing what's happening to them, and that is wrong. So obviously, of course, like legally, I think in America, we're probably never going to get to a point where we are requiring sex ed with no exceptions whatsoever. However, I think that we're so far away from like that happening that it's sort of like, why even ask this? The real question we should be asking is like, why is sex ed so bad and inaccurate? Oh, bless you, puppy. I think sex ed is fine. I think it should probably be better. We should probably have more of it. I'm not really worried about like some Orwellian future where the children are forced to watch sex acts in gym class. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like it's making a mountain out of a molehill. Definitely a leading question for sure. I keep having dreams about kinks I've never tried before. I'd like to do some journaling, but all of the suggestions I'm seeing are for subs. What would be good for self-reflection tools for DOMs? Oh, that's a really good question. That's a really, really good question. Yeah, I don't have any prompts off the top of my head. Hi, baby. You want a little sneezy session, huh? Ooh, big yawn. There we go. I don't have any prompts off the top of my head for like reflections for DOMs. I feel like in a lot of ways they probably are similar to submissives, because it's like checking in with yourself after a scene, thinking about what fantasies you have and what in them could possibly translate into reality, planning out how you would make that reality, like what do you need to learn, what do you need to know, how would you negotiate for this, who would you be able to do it with, where would you be able to do it, and then reflecting on like the emotional states that brings up for you, like trying to understand more deeply, why is this appealing, what other kinks could it be connected to, like if you're having fantasies about well, actually I don't even really need to give specifics, but like, if you're having fantasies about stuff, is it about feeling powerful, is it about righting a wrong, is it about having someone submit to you? Is it about like being able to express, a side of yourself that you don't necessarily like your sadist side, but that other people still like and want? There's like figuring out the emotional things that are coming up, what that might be connected to, the sort of through lines of that, and then kind of planning of like, okay, well, if I wanted to make this reality, what would that actually look like? What elements could I take? And then what would I do? That's essentially what I would be thinking of. I'm new here, but have been binge watching a lot of videos as of late. Been enjoying the interviews. Any plans on interviewing someone in the diaper lover community? I'd have to know someone in the diaper lover community to do that. I'm definitely open to doing it. I actually really like to talk to somebody who's like personally a diaper lover and could explain that a little bit more, because I think it's a really commonly misunderstood kink. But I don't know anyone who's like an educator who has a platform, who's a DL, who's like in the BDSM world. But if I find someone, I'm totally open to it. I just don't have any immediate plans to have that happen either. The sex ed I had in primary and secondary school was so bad. Learned nothing, had to learn on my own. A lot of people have to do that, unfortunately, because adults they feel awkward about teaching kids about, how sex works. And I get that. I think that, of course, it's going to be awkward for most people to do that. But, at the same time, when you're not teaching people things, they're going to learn it from somewhere. And you want to make sure they're actually getting accurate information. Yeah, we're synced up. What can I say? What happens if the designated dom feels more submissive in their month or vice versa? That's a good question. I would imagine they probably, like anything else, if you're not, like, nothing is ever an obligation. In the sense that you, maybe outside of circumstances and like TP relationships. But, if you are in a dynamic with someone and you're like, okay, well, this month you're going to be the dom. If you're not feeling that, sometimes for some people, they know that they'll actually feel more in that role if they push through and they do it. But I imagine for other people, like, that's going to be not helpful at all. It's going to make them feel worse, and it's going to make them feel less dominant because they're sort of doing it because their partner wants them to. That's going to be another sit-down conversation of like, hey, so, I've given it a try for a couple days this month. I'm really not feeling like I'm in my dom headspace. Let's talk about it. And there could be a lot of solutions for that. That could be deciding to hand the reins back over to your partner. That could be, maybe just talking about it out loud makes it easier. Maybe that means modifying for that month, like what your focus is on. Maybe that means less like power exchange, maybe more of certain other kinds of scenes. Like, there's ways to balance that, I think, to make that work while still generally keeping that structure. Do you think most women are demisexual? No. Easy. No. I think a lot of people are demisexual, like in the sense of like, probably more than we currently realize. But I think people say that, all women are demisexual because, like, don't all women care about having an emotional connection before they have sex? And it's like, no. There's the, I want to have an emotional connection with somebody to get to know them better, so I feel like connected during sex. And then there's like, I don't even think someone's like hot. I'm not capable of being even attracted to someone sexually until we have an emotional connection. And I think those two things can seem very similar. Like, I think a lot of people assume like there's like, I think this person is hot, but I still want to get to know them better before we have sex, because then I know it'll be a better experience and it'll be more like I want to have. And it'll be more like what I want to have. And then there's like, I don't even register if they're attractive to me or not sexually before I have an emotional connection to them. And that's the difference. I know it's kind of confusing if that's not like part of your own experience, but for people where that's like how they feel things, that's how they feel it. Are my headphones not working, or is there feedback from the microphone? I guess I can't. If I stop talking, I see 0 decibels of any noise coming through any of my audio mixers. But I can double check. Let me see. Is there anything? Are there any other devices that are not muted that should be muted? I'm not seeing anything. Is anyone else hearing any feedback? Audio is fine. There's a little bit of feedback. Oh, from what? What could that be coming from? Audio is good here. One thing I can think of is I did reconnect my camera, and it might be something with like the onboard camera mic. But I don't actually, that actually seems like it's muted, so I'm not sure what else it would be. I'm not seeing anything from the audio output capture, so I don't know. That is would have been nice to know sooner than 5 minutes before the end of the stream. I'm hearing a little buzz or feedback. Oh wait, there's buzzing. Okay, wait, let me listen. I'm gonna mute myself and I'm gonna listen to the stream for a second. I do hear. Let me try something. If I turn off the fan, does that make a difference? I just turned it off. Did that do anything? Let me. It would have been nice to know sooner than 5 minutes before the end of the stream. All right, it sounded like it worked. Cool. Okay, I just had my, it's been hot, so I just had my fan up really high, but we only had like 5 minutes left, so I'm not going to worry about it too much, but good. Yeah, in the future, if you hear that buzzing, it's probably the fan. Like if it's a continual noise, like the whole time, regardless of when I'm speaking or not, that's probably something mechanically that's happening or with a device. But if it's only happening when I'm speaking, it's probably some outside noise that my noise filters are trying to cut out. So in this case, it was the fan. I'm only gonna not have it for 5 minutes. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. But also, it's not gonna be the summer for very much longer, so hopefully it won't be a big deal. Okay, let's do a couple more questions. Buzzing thing, yeah. I know, she knows that it'll be time soon. Ridiculous. Redonkulous even. I wish they would educate males on female anatomy and vice versa. Why are they even separated in the first place? That's my only commentary on sex ed. I mean, I think it's fine to like initially just teach people about their own body parts and then, you know, soon after teach them about everyone's body parts. Cause like, you know, 10-year-old boys probably would be unbearable if they talked about vaginas. I don't know. Maybe I can see an argument for why you wouldn't, but I think overall people should be equally educated about all things by the end of their schooling at some point. All right, I'm looking for questions. Kink man spreading. Wow. Ooh, sorry, I had an exam RQ request. I don't know what that means. We've been together 8 years, and hopefully this convo will help us both have our needs met. Hopefully, good luck. What would you say to people, me, who are struggling with feeling as though their kink interest isn't tangible, lack of experience? I've been struggling with this probably from overthinking. Well, it sounds like you sort of already know what's going on. You know, I think it is likely that you're probably overthinking things. And I think this happens when you, education's always great. But I think before you participate in kink, you can risk over-educating yourself and then kind of just thinking about kink in an academic way without really doing it. And then you're sort of disconnected from your emotional interest in kink because it just becomes sort of a purely logical experience of just learning about it. And I think the solution for that, if you haven't gone to a munch yet, or talked to people in real life about it, or gone to a dungeon, or done something like that, I would recommend doing that. That might help it feel more tangible to you again. Or I think probably just having experience doing scenes, at some point when you do take that will help it feel more tangible. Of course, like if you don't have a tangible interest in kink, it could be hard to know what you want to do, in which case look for a tasting event, look for a speed date event, look for something where it's not that it's chosen for you, but like when you're doing a tasting event, you're trying maybe a couple minutes of one kink and it's a very controlled environment. It's not even really a full scene. And having that tactile experience can really help you. Also, like solo play is great. If you haven't tried solo play yet, all kinds of options for, solo bondage, solo wax play, like we've been talking about a little bit today, solo pet play too. There's ways to try kinks, even though they may not be the same or might not even really be close emotionally to how you experience doing kink with somebody else. You can still get that tactile process of what it feels like to, have your legs tied together, or what it feels like to bark like a puppy, and I think that can be helpful for reconnecting with that. But that's a tough one for sure. Ooh, I saw a very nasty video of a couple going to a mall and a Target or something, and the woman had a vibe in and a very obvious wet spot on her gray leggings. There were families passing by. I mean, yeah. Listen, and that's like, I think kink people were the brunt of it when people are like, oh my God, people do weird sex things in public. People always assume it's like, oh my God, they're kinky. But like half the time it's like vanilla people that are like trying to advertise their OnlyFans by like making a rage bait video. And then and it just makes me mad for a whole other reason. Of course, if you ever want to see a sub has a bratty side to them, keep them in the tub while you're getting hydrated. Yeah, see if they can challenge. Stay in the tub while you wait. Fair point. All right, let me go. Go back to. Unironically, what do you think the world would be like if most of the world's population was both asexual and aromantic? Sex and romance is overrated. No, I mean, I don't think romance is overrated because I'm not aromantic. I do think that people's focus on sex sometimes comes as a detriment, and that's how we get Greek tragedies. I do think if people were less sex focused in their lives, I'm not sure if that would change too many things. I think honestly we'd probably see a lot less instances of like boundary violations and assault and people staying in relationships that don't work for them. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I think it's an interesting question. I think in a lot of ways it would be better, but I think if everyone could only have platonic relationships and that was how our brains operated, I mean, I don't know. I think platonic relationships can be really close. I don't know. I guess it's potentially, depending on how we ended up, we may not end up losing anything because we could be very close to people in other ways. And it may end up being a benefit, but I don't know. A lot of people will be out of work if there wasn't a sex industry, though. So, maybe. Also, like, maybe there still would be one, but it would be very different. Because, like, there's a whole spectrum of asexuality. And there's going to be some ace people that still, like, maybe are, like, I guess, well, you're saying they're both asexual and aromantic. So maybe they're all, maybe gray ace people don't exist anymore. Maybe demi people don't exist anymore. Maybe it's just asexual. I don't know. I don't know if this is an acceptable question. I'm about to find out. But what is your favorite kink or kinks? And what is a kink that you... okay. It says, what is kink that you think are underestimated? I'm going to assume it means, what are kinks that you think are underestimated? Kinks that I think are underestimated, that people don't engage in enough would be like sensation play in general. I think it's kind of like, oh my God, it's for newbies. And like, I think people stop doing it when they have more experience, but it can be really, really good. So that would be one that I think is underestimated. Other kinks I think are underutilized. I have to probably stop and think about it. I think role play in general. I think a lot of people, like, unless you're into role play as a thing, I think a lot of people tend to just like be themselves. There's not really a lot of like costuming, creating a character, creating an alternate persona. I think not very many people do that. And as far as my favorite kink is probably like primal play. And I'm not like, I'm not going to go into detail about it, but that, most people, I think, if they've watched my channel for a long time, they've probably heard me say that at least once before. So I want to join a local munch, but I don't have access to FetLife. Is there any other way? Oh, why don't you have access to FetLife? That's like an interesting problem. There is an older directory for munches. There's the mall, which is I always forget the abbreviation. It's like, adult media, what is it? Yes, the Munch and Adult Local Links directory. That's an older website. It's www.findamunch.com. Oh my god, why is somebody on the non-monogamy subreddit asking about... Wait, do polyamorous people also call their shit munches? I'm gonna have to call it the vanilla. We can call it the vanilla poly people for stealing our shit if they actually call their stuff munches. I've been in the poly world for a long time, and I've never seen anyone call a polyamorous group meetup a munch. But usually 99% of the time, if you see a munch, it's for a kink thing and not for a non-monogamous thing. But okay, it seems like people are also saying that in the responses, so whew, relief. I guess actually, if you live in a pretty liberal city and you have like a like in r/ask Seattle or r/ask Portland or whatever, you can probably ask on there if it's a big enough city and be like, hey, are there any meetups for kinky people? Are there any dungeons in the area? Are there any munches? And somebody might be able to tell you if they are or not. You're probably not going to get a link to a place directly, but they might be able to tell you some level of information about it, or maybe you'll get a DM or something. And then there are some websites, though, most of them are pretty private, and so you're not going to be able to find kinky things on them. But there's the Bloom community app, which is probably the most likely thing, though it's the most geographically restricted. There's meetup.com, which I've never seen any kink events on there, but I have seen non-monogamy, and Eventbrite. Less kink events on there these days. Did I say events? Kink events. Less kink events on Eventbrite that are publicly able to be seen these days. You can also just look up like dungeons in your area. They might have an event calendar. Maybe they have social events, maybe not munches, but maybe they have like a Saturday afternoon karaoke brunch. Maybe they have, Sunday morning cartoons for littles. Maybe they have something that's a social at the dungeon, but not necessarily a munch. Like they have a discussion group or a potluck or something that you could go to instead. And then from there, maybe you could meet people and go to a munch that way. That would be kind of what I would look at. There's definitely options. I know Google these days is not as good, but if you're in a big enough area, you might be able to find one that way. Do you need a mobile number to sign up for FetLife? Oh. You could also Google BDSM munch name of city or BDSM club name of city, yeah, and then call them for info. Yeah, there's not very many munches that have like a website you can find with Google, but certainly clubs you can find. I don't think I've ever found a munch by Googling it, but it depends on where you live. Some of them are big enough to where that might be a thing. Last question. Do you want someone to timestamp the live stream? If you want to, that's fine. You can leave it in a comment. Usually if I see that, I assume it's a spam bot doing it for whatever weird reason, because they add a bunch of emojis and shit, and it's like, why does this timestamp have 5 emojis in it for every line? Bizarre. But if you want to, that's fine. I know, she's the queen of patience. She knows that her time is here. All right, it is 10 after. I think that is it for now. That's going to be where we wrap things up. Looking for munches. So thank you all so much for being here with me on this Friday evening. I really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for being here. We do this every Friday at 6 o'clock. Video coming out tomorrow. And that's basically it. We're playing games over on Twitch on Mondays at 5. If you didn't know, it's just Evie Lupine. I'm over there on Twitch, and we do this every Friday at 6 o'clock. If you want to make sure you can check us out next time, go ahead and subscribe if you have not. Again, thank you all so much for your questions, and I will talk to you soon. Bye! Yeah, you knew, huh? Because you're a smart girl. Hi, baby. Hi, I know. And then we roll over. And then we roll over, and we get some belly rubs, and I pick you up. Boop, boop. Bye. Bye. Fluffy. I cannot get her to look at the camera. She has no concept of looking into a lens. All right. Good night, y'all.